Hi, my name is Megan Atavle. I'm the CEO of LUMOplay. My friends and I have been making interactive floors and walls for over 15 years. When we started the company in 2010, the platform that we were working on was Adobe Flash, which, as you may or may not know, does not exist anymore. And we've since switched to supporting other game engines, and our main game engine nowadays is Unity. This effect that we made for Easter back in 2011 is no longer a good example of our work. It's still cute and it still works, but it's pretty frantic and it's very low resolution. In this video, I'm hoping to get some feedback about whether or not you think we should keep our old Flash apps or whether we should replace all of them with a newer game engine version, whether you think we should bring back the effects that allow us to copy the texture from an image into these particles, even if it's at the expense of not being able to make the particles different shapes or not giving them the ability to behave in as many ways. I would love to have some feedback about this because as of right now, there's over 350 apps in our market. And while we're always working to add more, it might make sense to update some of the old ones. So let's go make a new effect. We can compare them at the end and you can let me know what you think about whether or not we should keep the old apps in our library or whether we should replace all of them. In the process, I'm also going to teach you how you can make an interactive floor yourself. So if you're interested in any of that, stick with us and let's get started. Okay, really quick before we start, if you can engage with this video, I'd really appreciate it. I know this is cheesy, but our team is really small. We've been doing this, like I said, for a really long time, and we don't charge very much for our software. We actually charge at cost for the entry-level software, which is what most schools and not-for-profits use. And I would like to continue making videos and continue making apps and continue working on this software for as long as I possibly can. I know that you guys can't afford $10,000, $20,000, $30,000 for a system, so this is my way of making sure that we can get these kinds of interactive displays in businesses and schools and not-for-profit organizations and sensory labs using equipment that is available locally and that is easy for people to maintain. So yeah, if you want to help me out, even if you're not really interested in doing this yourself, but you believe in the mission that we're on, just leave a like and maybe leave a comment, tell your friends about us. That's it, thanks. To make my new interactive Easter floor effects, I'm going to launch LUMOplay. I'm using LUMO Playmaker, which is our agency tier. So this is the tier that's used most often by commercial organizations who are making interactive effects for clients and for events and who don't want to pay a publishing fee each time they make something new. So with LUMO Playmaker, you can publish as many apps using all of our templates as you'd like to. These are all the templates. There's quite a few of them. I believe we're up to 16. And templates, just like apps, are made based on community requests. So if there's something that you want to be able to edit, you can make a request in our community forum and we'll add it to our roadmap and make sure that you have a template for it. The template I'm using today is called Break Apart, and that is based on the old Flash template that we used to have. But as you'll see in a second, it does some very different things. Once I click Create, the template will launch and it'll give me a bunch of defaults. And as you can see already, the behavior of these particles is very different than the behavior of the particles in our old effects. I'm going to give my app a name before I get started. I always like to do this first because I'm usually working on multiple projects at the same time and it just helps me remember which one is which. I'll also usually use versioning number, but you don't have to do that because, well, I mean you can, but I'm not your mom. So I've given my app a name so I can find it once it's published, and I'm just going to click Save. You don't need to click Save. LUMOplay will save your progress as you go, but if there's something that you want to do that you want to make sure is saved right away, the button exists and it's there and you can press it. I'm going to start by putting in a custom overlay. There's a bunch of different kinds of overlays that you can use in these templates. The logo image, the logo transparency has a setting. The mask image, which I used in my last tutorial to make a custom shape. If you are using LUMOplay to make a custom mapped shape interactive, the mask is what you would use to define what your shape is. Today I'm just going to be using an idle, and the idle image is something that shows up on the screen when nobody is interacting. It's a PNG with a transparent background that is saved at the size of the complete effect. So even if the idle image is small, you're still going to save a file that is the size of the final effect. So it's really important to know what the final resolution of your display is going to be. In this case, it's 1920 by 1200. So I'm going to open this up and it will put the graphic right in the middle here. And I'm just going to turn the alpha all the way down on it, or all the way up on it. I forget how you would express that, but it is no longer transparent except for obviously the transparent areas of the image. And I'm just going to adjust, the timeout is already pretty long. The idle timeout is how long it takes for this image to come back after inactivity. So this image disappears as soon as there's any sort of activity, and it won't come back for a little while. So it gives all the particles a chance to kind of go back to their original shape, and then this comes back on. The idle image is really great for things like calls to action. So if you're doing an interactive effect and you want to invite people to play, if you're doing a game and you want people to start the game, the idle image is perfect for that. It disappears when people are playing and then it comes back when nobody else is playing to tell the next people that there's something cool and interactive that they can engage with. That's the only overlay that I'm going to be using. So I'm going to collapse this area so that I can access the next area more easily. And the next area is the background. And this is very simple. I'm just replacing this background with a new video that I made that has a very cute little bunny on it. And just to make it a little easier for you to see this, we'll move on to the next area, which is the image, and just replace this quickly with my new break apart image, which is a bunch of egg shapes that go over top of the animations that I made. So now when you break this apart, you're revealing little cute animations, which is very, very cool and a lot more interesting, I think, than the original effect, which was just looked like a static image if nobody was interacting with it, and was really just one static image on top of another static image. So having a video behind there is something new that we've started doing with the new templates. And I think it gives you a lot more possibilities for what these templates can actually create. Now, once your shape image is chosen, so in this case, my shape image is all these little egg shapes, I can show the image, or I can give it a semi-transparency if I want to, which would leave the original image underneath the particles. So these particles are snapping to this image. There's no reason to do that in this, but if you are making something where it makes sense to have the image in the background and then the particles snapping to it, you can absolutely do that with this template. You can also adjust the shape image size. So if this didn't quite line up, say one of the videos was kind of poking out here, I would be able to use the image size to adjust for that, but I don't recommend relying on this too heavily. You should definitely be designing your stuff in Photoshop on layers and making sure that they match up and making sure that they are sized to the size of your display before you start doing this. But if you don't do that, again, I'm not your mom, and we did put in kind of a safeguard so that you can resize on the fly while you're building. So my image is now in place, and the fun part is now editing these particles. Right now the particles are little bunny heads, they're our logo, and that's not what I want, so I'm going to get rid of that. Now you can see my video more clearly because there are no particle images to stick to that image that I'm using for the particle shape. So let's change that. I'm going to add a flower. And this is one of the key differences between the old type of break apart and what we have now, is that you can add a number of different kinds of particle shapes. Whereas before it was just kind of little confetti dots that broke apart. Now I can have different shapes of different sizes. I'm going to turn these particle sizes up just enough that you don't really see the video in the background. There's a little bit of hinting, but there's not that much. Maybe a little bit more. That's perfect. And now I can reveal my video, and it makes all these cute little flowers and hearts move away. Another thing that you can do with the particles, it isn't quite like the effect was before, but you can, instead of having your particles be all different colors, you can enable tinting, and then the particles will take their color from the original image that they're snapping to. This doesn't look great to me because I didn't really plan to do that. So it will combine the colors of the particles that you made with the color of the background image, and I don't think tinting looks that good for this app, but for some things it looks really, really cool. So if you wanted to make your client's logo or somebody's name out of particles that are shaped like things they like or like things that represent a brand, that's really easy to do here as well. I'm going to turn that off because I like the original colors that I created for this app. And that's pretty much it. There's a lot of different effects and behaviors that you can change. If you wanted to make the particles return more quickly, if you want to give them a little bit more friction so they don't move quite as far or quite as fast, if you want to make them move quicker or slower, if you want to space them differently, there's features in here for all of that, and you can test everything you're doing in real time, which is really nice because, like, let's be honest, running back and forth, publishing, testing, and running back to your screen would be a huge pain in the butt. Once you have everything exactly the way you want it, just hit save again just to be safe. And you can press this X at the top here. That will close everything down and it'll save your effect in drafts. As long as your effect is a draft, you can continue going in and editing it, which is pretty amazing, and also allows you, if you are an agency, to make multiple versions of something to show to your end client. And that way you can give them some options. Once this is all saved, I can hit publish. Now, once you publish an app, you can no longer go in and edit it. So it's going to give you a little warning and tell you the watermark's going to be removed and you won't be able to edit it anymore. I'm going to click OK. It's going to upload my app and we're going to head over to the floor and test it out. So here's the new experience on the floor. You could just as easily use this on a wall if you wanted to. But since the other experience we were comparing it to is also on the floor, I'm only going to test it on the floor. And also, I'm tired. I had to shoot this entire video twice because I'm not great with cameras and everything was out of focus the first time. So anyways, this obviously looks very different than the original Easter effect, but it is because we can do better stuff now. The particles don't move as frantically. There's little videos in every corner and in the middle to explore. There's lots of variation in the particles, and the whole thing just looks a lot more playful and like spring to me. So tell me what you think. Should we keep the old effect? Should we make a template that mimics the old effect a little more closely? Or should we start upgrading all of our old flash effects so that they take advantage of the new templates and the new systems that we have in place? You let me know in the comments, and I'll be back next Tuesday with another tutorial.